When he ordered his army to invade Ukraine in early 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin could not have foreseen how the subsequent years would unfold. Thanks to Russia's vast advantages in military equipment and manpower, Putin probably anticipated a swift and overwhelming victory. He imagined his troops hoisting the Russian flag above Kiev and the populace hailing him as the nation's most exceptional leader in history. His plan, however, backfired in a manner he can scarcely understand. His goal was to crush Ukraine, but he instead transformed it into a formidable military superpower. Before 2022, Ukraine was by no means a significant force in the military domain. This isn't to suggest it lacked some noteworthy military projects under development or achievements to be proud of. For instance, it created the now famous R-360 Neptune missile, which it has subsequently modified in several ways and used against a multitude of Russian targets. It also possessed a fairly capable military to protect its territory if needed, along with reserves of old Soviet-era weaponry and tanks to utilize. Nevertheless, it wasn't a country that would immediately come to mind when discussing premier global missile programs or military innovations. Nor would its armed forces have been ranked among the planet's most tactically skilled and resilient. All of that has now changed. Today, Ukraine is unquestionably part of the conversation when naming the world's leading militaries. It serves as the pioneer, the standard, and the model for innumerable other nations globally to emulate. Even major, established military powers in Europe and elsewhere are now looking to Ukraine for guidance and leadership in bolstering their own defenses. This incredible transformation is owed entirely to the remarkable efforts of its people, along with its various military branches, manufacturers, and associated entities. This is a narrative of defying the odds, of adapting amidst adversity, of rising up instead of backing down. It all started on February 24, 2022, the day the first Russian troops crossed the border and presumed to threaten Ukrainian territory. From that day forward, Ukraine's defense sector has experienced a massive 350% growth, a detail highlighted in a recent comprehensive report for the Jamestown Foundation, authored by Taras Kuzio, a political science professor at the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, and an associate research fellow at the London-based think tank, the Henry Jackson Society. Professor Kuzio's report also pointed out that the period from 2023 to 2024 was an especially significant year for Ukraine. Defense investment surged by an astounding 900%, with the exact figure estimated to be between $35 and $50 million. This illustrates the immense financial growth the Ukrainian defense sector has undergone recently. The industry has effectively expanded to almost 4 times its previous size in the last 3.5 years, considering that a mere 26% of Ukraine's current defense firms were operational before 2022. Such growth is without precedent, demonstrating how exceptionally well the engineers, developers, military specialists, and innovators of Ukraine have reacted to the invasion. They had the option to cower in fear or to surrender to the invaders, waving a white flag before a much larger, more powerful force. They chose instead to stand firm. They resisted, held their ground, and labored relentlessly to discover new methods of self-defense, pouring investment into everything from drone technology and artificial intelligence to missile systems and tank armor. And, as Professor Kuzio states, this expansion is set to continue as long as the war persists. Growth of Ukraine's defense sector will continue because Russia's maximalist goals have not changed, and international attempts at brokering peace have failed. This represents the unfortunate but accurate reality of the war at present. Despite calls for peace and a ceasefire between Moscow and Kyiv from various nations and global leaders such as US President Donald Trump, the conflict appears no nearer to a conclusion now than it was 1 or 2 years ago. While Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has demonstrated a genuine desire to end the conflict, his Russian counterpart, Putin, has done precisely the reverse. He has consistently said one thing while doing another, engaging in peace discussions with Trump 1 minute, and then unleashing record-breaking drone and missile strikes on Kyiv the next. The position of Putin is made clear by his words and deeds. He made a notable statement earlier this year, claiming Ukraine belonged to Russia. I have said many times that I consider the Russian and Ukrainian peoples to be one people. In this sense, all of Ukraine is ours. We have an old rule: wherever a Russian soldier sets foot is ours. Furthermore, Putin has stayed resolute in his dedication to prosecuting the war, regardless of the circumstances. He continues to press forward, even as his nation's economy falters and his forces find it difficult to advance on the front lines, suffering severe losses of equipment and personnel, stating, "Our troops are advancing along the entire line of contact. Every day, more or less, but every day they go forward, and the advance will continue." As long as that advance continues, and as long as Russian forces persist in invading Ukraine, seizing its land, and killing its citizens, the people of Ukraine will have no choice but to defend themselves. And to do so, their defense sector will carry on creating, innovating, and amazing the world with its unique efficiency and capacity to develop exceptional defenses and weaponry, frequently with limited budgets and in surprisingly short periods. This is crucial not just for Ukraine, but for all of Europe and the future possibility of global peace. As noted by EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, it is clear that Russia shows no real wish to end this war. For Europe, this can only mean one thing: more military, diplomatic, and economic support for Ukraine. In the event of a truce, a strong Ukrainian military is the strongest security guarantee there is. That is why we are also supporting them with training, funding, and equipment. Fortunately, Ukraine's military is stronger today than at any point in its history, a fact supported by numerous statistics. Concerning drone warfare, for instance, Ukraine currently stands as the world's largest manufacturer of tactical and long-range drones. After the war concludes, it will be regarded as the global drone capital, with countless armies worldwide turning to Kiev to either buy drones or to learn about manufacturing their own and using them effectively on the battlefield. Ukrainian forces also possess unmatched experience in this area, as drones have become more dominant in this war than any other piece of military hardware. Things didn't begin this way. Russia initially depended on more traditional warfare methods, such as tanks and armored vehicles, to overpower its adversary. However, as the months and years passed and tanks proved progressively less effective, Russia pivoted to drones, launching them with growing regularity at Ukrainian towns and cities. Data charting this year's Russian drone strikes reveals their massive scale. The Kremlin once launched UAVs by the dozen across the border into Ukraine. It now frequently sends them by the hundreds, including one recent record-breaking assault that involved over 820 drones. While Ukraine has been forced to find ways to counter this, it has also managed to develop its own drones and perfect its own style of drone warfare, a style that is, in many respects, much more effective than Russia's. This is because Russian tactics are based mainly on brute force. It's the reason it continues to break its own records by sending ever larger swarms into Ukraine. It is aware that the majority will be intercepted, as the Ukrainian armed forces have highly effective and impressive air defense systems deployed throughout their country. Russia is also aware, however, that a few drones will manage to get past those defenses and inflict damage on targets, which range from schools and hospitals to power stations and residential homes. Ukraine, in contrast, deploys drones with much greater efficiency, precision, and care. It avoids the wasteful approach of its adversary and refrains from committing war crimes by regularly targeting entirely innocent civilians, as Russia does. It instead carefully selects its targets and meticulously plans its attacks, frequently destroying infrastructure that is most critical to the Kremlin and launching strikes with the highest probability of ending the war quickly. For example, it has recently concentrated its attacks on targets like fuel storage depots and oil refineries, sparking a major fuel crisis that is currently spreading rapidly across Russia. Moreover, Ukrainian drones are becoming deadlier and more intelligent daily. Professor Kuzio's report indicates that from 2025 into 2026, the nation plans to transition from the conventional one-operator, one-drone model to AI-powered drone swarms capable of autonomous operation, requiring little to no human intervention or control. This will alter the state of the conflict even more, since drones powered by AI will not be susceptible to the same challenges or risks as traditional models. For instance, they won't be as vulnerable to electronic warfare measures and jammers, enabling them to bypass enemy defenses and hit their targets more easily. It's impossible to predict how Ukraine's armed forces might leverage this technology to inflict even more destructive strikes on what remains of Russia's energy infrastructure. In the missile sector, Ukraine has also been a game changer. At the war's outset, it possessed little beyond its Neptune anti-ship missiles and old Soviet stockpiles. It has since developed multiple Neptune variants, including one for land-based attacks against Russian infrastructure, airfields, air defenses, and radars. Recently, Ukraine also revealed its Sapsan missile, the first ballistic missile produced domestically, which can travel at 4 times the speed of sound. Additionally, it unveiled the Flamingo, which has a staggering range exceeding 1,800 miles. Beyond these drone and missile accomplishments, Ukraine has introduced many other innovations, such as AI-driven air defense turrets and special add-on armor packages that enhance the resilience of tanks and armored vehicles in combat. 2 primary factors make these sorts of advancements possible. First is the substantial financial aid and investment from Ukraine's numerous key allies worldwide, especially those within Europe and the NATO alliance. This funding, channeled through programs like the ERA loans for Ukraine, enables Kiev's defense companies and contractors to press on with their research and development. Second is the Ukrainian government's strong willingness to foster and support innovation. For instance, it established the Brave One platform, which offers support to about 2,500 tech companies through $30 million in grants. Brave One has facilitated the creation of multiple critical technologies currently in use, such as interceptor drones designed to locate and eliminate Russian reconnaissance drones, thereby complicating Russian intelligence gathering and attack planning. Brave One also supports over 200 AI-driven innovations, which span from AI analysis of UAV-captured photos and videos to the advanced military intelligence systems that will power future drones. Furthermore, the platform assists approximately 140 electronic warfare manufacturers. Many of these are not only creating products for Ukraine's current needs, but are also designing them to NATO standards, ensuring they can be easily sold and deployed by other countries down the line. It is also highly probable that many countries will be in negotiations with Kiev in the near future to acquire some of its drone technologies, as no one, including the United States, can currently compete with Ukraine in this field. Nathan Mintz, co-founder of the Californian defense firm CX2, remarked to the Wall Street Journal, "No U.S. company is keeping up with Ukraine." The Wall Street Journal also reported that American drones sent to Ukraine often underperformed. Many U.S. companies that brought drones to Ukraine watched them fall out of the sky or fail to complete missions. Considering the U.S. is a leader in nearly every other military domain, this highlights the exceptional work Ukraine is doing, even surpassing America in the realm of drone warfare. As the war has continued, Ukraine has also grown less dependent on weapons systems from its allies. In the early stages, it was in dire need of anti-tank weapons and missiles from supportive countries like the United Kingdom and the U.S. Over time, however, it has increasingly concentrated on enhancing its domestic production capabilities and projects. Today, Ukraine manufactures 60% of the equipment its armed forces use, with only a minority being sourced from other countries. It also produces more artillery shells than all of Europe and the NATO alliance combined. Its production has surged across the board. Anti-tank weapons have increased by 100%, ammunition by 150%, artillery by 200%, and armored personnel carriers by a remarkable 400%. A concrete example of this production increase is the Bodana howitzer. In 2022, Ukraine produced only 1, whereas now, in 2025, it manufactures 20 units each month. Even more remarkably, Ukraine can produce such weapons more quickly and affordably than other countries. It can deliver howitzers within 60 days for just $2.5 million each, in contrast to the $4.3 million price tag in Western countries. where delays can extend for months or even years. This is attributable in part to the structure of Ukraine's defense sector, which is predominantly composed of private firms that operate with significant freedom and flexibility. With minimal bureaucracy, everything is designed for immediate battlefield application, which means lengthy phases of testing, refining, and prototyping are often bypassed. Products are simply manufactured and deployed, prepared for use against Russian forces. This stands in sharp contrast to the state-controlled military-industrial complexes found in other countries, such as Russia, where production delays and excessive red tape are common. In Ukraine today, over 500 private defense firms operate, primarily using domestically sourced components. This creates a self-contained ecosystem that achieves results smartly and affordably, characterized by swift innovation and no government interference. The outcomes are evident, with numerous examples of ambitious and exciting Ukrainian defense startups producing incredible equipment in very short time frames. Overall, Ukraine has provided an incredible model that many other nations might want to emulate. Facing the brutal reality of a real war, it lacked the luxury of waiting months or years to develop and test new weapons before deployment. It had to eliminate intermediaries and accelerate the process, which is precisely what it accomplished. Today, it is home to some of the world's most impressive military manufacturers. This includes leading drone producers like Skyfall, the company behind the notorious Vampire or Baba Yaga drone, and TAF, the manufacturer of the Colibri 7 and 8 drones. As the defense industry in Ukraine expands, the nation is also forging more valuable and significant partnerships with major global powers. The United States, for instance, is making substantial investments in Ukrainian defense, arranging a $100 billion deal with Kyiv in return for ownership rights to specific Ukrainian military technologies. This marks the first occasion the U.S. has acquired military hardware from a country not in the NATO alliance. The U.S. Department of Defense has also finalized contracts with 2 U.S.-Ukrainian partners to develop long-range drones. Meanwhile, NASA has acquired Ukrainian robots developed by the firm Drone UA. Valery Yakovenko, the company's co-founder and managing partner, believes this demonstrates Ukraine's emergence as a global technology leader. Testing our solutions in the United States paves the way for lasting collaboration with NASA. This proves that Ukrainian innovations are shaping the future. Europe is also constantly seeking opportunities to learn from and invest in Ukraine's rapidly growing defense industry. In numerous respects, Ukraine now serves as the continent's most critical and primary line of defense, developing and field testing military equipment that could be essential for protecting Europe from future Russian aggression. Consequently, the EU has established initiatives such as the previously mentioned ERA loans and the Security Action for Europe, SAFE, framework, to provide Ukraine with all possible support. European leaders, private companies and governments are all forging connections with the Ukrainian defense sector. The Baltic and Nordic countries have been especially proactive in their engagement and support for Ukraine's defense firms, leading Ukraine to outsource some military production to places like Norway and Denmark. Even further west, nations such as the UK, France, and Germany have demonstrated a strong desire to learn from and partner with Ukraine. Over 40 Western defense firms are now collaborating directly with Ukraine, including industry giants like Rheinmetall from Germany, Lockheed Martin from the US, and Thales from France. Each day, Ukraine's defense industry becomes more valuable and powerful. It is forging connections with investors and allies globally, setting precedents that even major military powers wish to follow, and introducing innovations more effectively and rapidly than any other country in the world. It has become a true force to be reckoned with, one forged entirely in the crucible of the war with Russia. Putin's aim was to weaken Ukraine and watch it collapse under the Kremlin's authority. Instead, he awakened a sleeping giant, transforming a nation that once appeared fragile and small into one of the most powerful military superpowers of the modern era. Discover more about some of Ukraine's latest defensive innovations by watching our videos on the ultra-long-range Flamingo missile, which can not only reach Moscow, but also hit targets deeper inside Russia, and the enigmatic new Puffy Neptune, thought to have an even longer range than the original. creating new lines of attack and targets for Kiev's forces. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel to be one of the first to hear about Ukraine's new tactical achievements and innovations, along with other significant news and updates from this and other global conflicts.